Hello again, I am Blunty. So for the last few weeks, I've been pretty much humdinging it on the old Fallout train. Humdinging it. That's not a thing people say, is it? It is now. It's mine. I'm coining it. It's going to be huge. We're humdinging it. It means to be completely obsessed by something. Humdinging it. Train of thought off the rails already. Fantastic. Well, not so much train of thought as kind of Roomba of thought, as we say on my live streams, because it's not really a train. It's not on tracks. The path of thought goes one way, hits a bit of furniture, and bounces off in the other direction, Roomba style. Twice in a row. Anyway, with all the distraction of Fallout recently, I haven't had much chance to talk about that. The PC port of Ghost of Tsushima, which I'm very, very excited for. Not very excited about the price, but we'll come back to that. But it is one of my most favorite games of all time. If you never played it the first time around because you don't, play on PlayStation or whatever your reason was at the time, now's the time to come back and take another look at it because it is truly superb. As I record this, we are just a smidge over 2 weeks away from this game hitting Steam and PCs in general, and bringing with it a bunch of very interesting things. Some enhancements for PC, of course, because PCs can and will be much, much more powerful than the PlayStation, so we can do some more interesting things. You've got more flexibility options, but there are some very new interesting features coming to do with the PlayStation system itself on PC and what that means for other future PlayStation ports coming to PC, and maybe even an indication that there won't be a massive gap anymore and PlayStation are going full on with this PC drive of theirs. Maybe we'll even get day and date multi-platform games. And I might make a separate video about that, but that idea is driving PlayStation users, the PlayStation fanboys, the Sony ponies, absolutely insane. They are losing their minds, and it's hilarious. But in any case, let's have a dive in, and I wanted to show you what I'm talking about. So this is the PlayStation.blog site here. This was posted a couple of weeks ago. What was the date on this thing? Does it have a date? They published it April 17th. So yeah, a couple of weeks ago. Didn't talk about it when it first came out because it was all about Fallout back then when the show was coming out, and the Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 had massive spikes, and I was personally sort of deep in them, sort of eyeball deep. Headline reads, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut PC crossplay and system requirements revealed. Crossplay for a single player game. We'll come back to that. And system requirements revealed. So we scroll down and we see, hey everyone, Ghost of Tsushima, yada yada yada. We've announced previously, Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut PC contains a full game, the Iki Island expansion, and the cooperative online multiplayer Legends mode. Now, I played this game originally on PlayStation 4, PS4 Pro actually, and back then it had, the two standard modes we had back then. You could play at 30 FPS with decent graphics, or you can cut back on the graphics and play at 60 FPS. Bit of a compromise. Once the Iki Island expansion came out, that was when the PS5 was around. We didn't have to make that compromise anymore. We could have nice graphics and 60 FPS, but it wasn't actually at true 4K still. It was using the checkerboarded thing that PlayStation does to fake 4K, and just pretend and just advertise it as 4K when it's actually not really 4K. It's upscaled, and like a much worse upscaling than PC users have available to them, but we'll come back to that as well. But that also came with the cooperative online multiplayer Legends mode, which I never played even once. I might this time though, because guess what's happening? It's getting cross-play support for the first time ever, I believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty damn sure I'm right. PlayStation native game, a PlayStation original game, a PlayStation console exclusive game, and the PC port are cross-play for the multiplayer mode, obviously. But that's very, very interesting. And it is multi-generational cross-play as well. As it says here, you can team up with players on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 and PC. You can use in-game voice chat to communicate. You will be required to sign into your PlayStation Network account to access Legends mode. And that brings us to the other new thing that is opening the door to a lot of very interesting things. And that is the Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is the first PlayStation title on PC that uses a new PlayStation overlay, which includes your friends list, trophies, settings, and your profile. This feature is available to Windows PC users and will be accessible from the in-game menu for keyboard players by pressing the Shift plus F1 keyboard shortcut. So, what we have here is a native PlayStation overlay that will presumably be used for all of their games going forward. That will provide that game a direct connection to your PlayStation account, which means they can do things like connect to their own, internal voice chat service for these games, their multiplayer service for these games, the trophies You can earn trophies playing a PlayStation game on PC, and it will be synced to your PlayStation account. And if you have, like me, already played this game on PlayStation, in fact, this is one of the very first games I ever platinumed because I love it so much, all of your trophies come across to PC as well. So if you did play back in the day, you didn't get all the trophies, you're playing again on PC, you want something to chase, you can chase your trophies on PC. Now, in general, I don't tend to care about achievements and trophies and whatever Steam calls theirs, the thing. But I have used them as an excuse a couple of times now, particularly with PlayStation games, just for whatever reason. Coincidence, probably. Ghost of Tsushima and Spider-Man and Miles Morales. All three of those, I've chased the Platinum Trophy. Not because I give a crap about trophies, you know, that's not a flex for me. I don't care. But because it gives me other goals to chase after and gives me an excuse to play more of the game, gives me a focus. Okay, I'm going after this trophy today. I'm going to follow this, you know, that kind of stuff. So bringing all that over to PC for their titles now opens some very interesting doors. An additional note on that kind of stuff is the PC version also has full support for achievements on Steam and the Epic Games stores. So they run side by side. You get your PlayStation trophies, but you also get your Steam achievements or your Epic Store thingies as well. They'll be the exact same thing, so you'll earn two at the same time. They won't be doing two separate lists of achievements for two separate, shopfront platform things. But, you know, if you care about one more than the other, or one is more useful to you for whatever reason, you're not missing out on one by having the other available to you. You'll, of course, need to sign into your PlayStation account. If you don't have one, you can make one. The use of the PlayStation overlay is optional. So if you don't want a PlayStation account, you don't want anything to do with trophies, you don't care about the cross-platform multiplayer and voice chat stuff, you don't have to have an account signed in. Unfortunately, this system is still probably going to be running just underneath the game, so it's just one more bit of junk that's just running underneath the game surface that you don't really need running. Probably won't have much of a performance impact, but if you're on a very low-end machine, I don't know, maybe someone will make a mod to disable the damn thing. Now, speaking of performance, that's where we get to this kind of stuff. So they say here, when bringing a game over PlayStation consoles to PC, the team at Nixie's always strives to have a great experience. So Nixie's have done a lot of the PlayStation ports so far, most notably the Spider-Man games. They also did the Horizon games, which didn't start well. I bought the original Horizon game on PC, and it was so bad it was unplayable. Like, I literally couldn't play it. The port was so broken at launch, and I stopped playing it, and I've never been back to it since. One of these days, I'll find time to get around to it and go back and actually play that game. Everyone seems to love so much about the dinosaurs and the robots and stuff, but, you know, that time has passed at the moment. They did, however, do a particularly good job on the Spider-Man games, introducing some new features, some new bells and whistles that I really appreciate about the PC ports of the game, and I found made them better in several ways than the PlayStation experience I had with the same games. So they're doing, you know, a similar thing again with the PC port. Ghost of Tsushima on PC should be the definitive version, the best way to play. And again, that's something that's really pissing off the Sony ponies out there, but who cares? Why are they getting upset that someone else gets to play a game they really like, but even better than they do? The petty jealousy. It's silly. If you care so much about, you know, getting the best game, buy the best hardware, guys. PlayStation isn't it. So let's talk about the hardware here. They've got 4 different sort of targets for us to point out here. Unfortunately, they don't mention in these targets what these settings actually mean, and if one very specific feature that can enhance performance is even turned on. Because as we scroll down a bit here, you can boost your frame rates with NVIDIA DLSS 3, hooray! AMD FSR 3, hooray! Or Intel XeSS, hooray! Those are all very, very good. The AMD one, FSR version 3, is so much better than the previous versions. It's really, really good now. Intel XeSS is even better than that in some games. Like I've done experimentations in Cyberpunk before, and the XeSS is actually preferable in Cyberpunk than FSR 3, but FSR 3 is better in some other games. It's a very, very, very specific game-dependent thing, so, you know, test both options. Both FSR 3 and XeSS are hardware agnostic. They don't care what your graphics card is, and of course the NVIDIA one, you have to have an NVIDIA card to use that in the first place, but it is quite good, and most people have NVIDIA graphics cards, just, you know. But yeah, coming back to this stuff for now, they don't actually mention if those are in play at these settings levels, like the 4K 60 FPS, is that with FSR active? They don't actually tell you. You'd hope this is native 4K performance they're talking about here, but there are no guarantees because Sony's got a Sony, and sometimes they're a little bit fuzzy with details. Anyway, so we're starting at a pretty humble i3 7100 or Ryzen 3 1200, which is a little bit lower than I expected of it, to be frank with you. GTX 960, RTX 5500. So they're relatively humble for the very low settings at 720p at 30 FPS. So there aren't too many active, dedicated PC gamers out there that should be missing out on the absolute basic level of this game. What it's going to look like at very low settings at 720p is another story altogether, because this is an astonishingly pretty game, and making it uglier is going to be interesting to look at. It will be something I will personally be exploring, because I do intend to get it up and running on this, because it's going to be a very interesting story, because Nixie's other ports have been a little wibbly. Spider-Man, the original Spider-Man game, runs great on this. You can fine-tune your settings. I've got videos on it, and it runs really, really nicely. Miles Morales, much trickier to get running at a really nice, acceptable balance of graphics and frame rates and consistency. Ghost of Tsushima, obviously on a different game engine from a different developer, but it's being ported by the same people who are very good at the ports. So it's going to be very interesting to see what level of performance we can get out of Ghost of Tsushima on devices like this and the MSI Claw, and of course the Steam Deck, which is, you know, less powerful than this thing is. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that, and look out for videos on that in you know, just after launch, I suppose. 1080p 60 FPS, kind of the default thing most people are going to want to be targeting. Again, relatively humble CPU requirements and GPU requirements there, going back to the RTX 2060, which is, you know, a very popular choice that a lot of people are still running. Should be fine. You're going to want at least 16 gigabytes of system memory, but that's very, very standard for a gaming machine these days as well. 75 gigabytes of space, very, very standard for an install size these days, unfortunately. And Windows 10 as a bare minimum. 1440p at 60 or 4K at 30. We start stepping these up a bit. You're going to want a Ryzen 5 5600, which is, again, a very, very common choice for a lot of gaming machines out there. The Ryzen 5 series of CPUs were extremely popular, and those floating in and around this kind of target shouldn't really be a problem for most people to be able to reach 1440p at 60 pretty easily. For that, you're going to want an RTX 3070, again, very popular choice, although the 3060 was a little bit more popular, and the RX 6800. Almost nobody has a 6800, but it's, you know, that's your AMD sort of target-ish. At 4K, 60 FPS, which is where, you know, you'd want to be running it, ideally, for me at least. We're looking at a Ryzen 5 5600 again. Very interesting that the CPU requirement didn't change between 1440p 60 and 4K 60. It probably means they're not CPU bound in any real way, which is not that surprising coming from a PlayStation game which does not have an especially powerful CPU. In fact, the CPU on the PlayStation 5 is somewhere closest to the medium one here, really. It's not exactly the same. It's a very similar architecture, a slightly different amount of cores and things like that. But if you're wondering, yeah, the medium requirements here of the 2060 and the 3600 Ryzen 5, that's vaguely in the ballpark of the power of the PlayStation 5 there. So RTX 4080 for the 4K, which is a bigger jump than I expected. 4070 would have been probably the ideal target, really. And AMD Radeon 7900 XT. I've got the 700 XTX, so I should be fine on that count as well. And my CPU is significantly more powerful than the Ryzen 5 5600 as well. So I should be able to max this game out without relying too heavily on, or at all, on FSR 3 and things like that. I will be testing them, of course, just to, you know, have a look at it. But if these are indeed native settings, I should be able to run this at native 4K 60 FPS and have plenty of headroom, fingers crossed. Now, coming with the PC port are the usual PC port things you would want, including ultra-wide monitor support, 20x9, 32x9, and even 48x9, and triple screen setups are supported. So there won't be too many people left out in the cold on this one, so long as it works properly. Bethesda, I'm looking at you again. Their Fallout 4 next-gen update that promised widescreen support that doesn't work properly. The game also features sensitive controller support, including full support for the PlayStation DualSense controller with haptic feedback and adaptive triggers if you're plugged in. Because Sony still haven't figured out how to make that work wirelessly on PC. Probably partially Steam's fault because of the way the controller system works through Steam, but yeah, if you want haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, you are going to have to run a cable from your PlayStation controller to your PC, which, considering the battery life on the PlayStation controller, is probably a good idea anyway, because this is one of those games you're going to soak into for hours, and unless you've got two separate PlayStation controllers like me, for exclusively making up for the crappy battery life of their shitty controllers. You're going to want to be plugged in anyway, or just use a controller that actually has a decently designed, battery life, like the Xbox controller, for example. It does also have keyboard and mouse support, although again, I am unsure how good that will be. I've never actually used any of the PlayStation ports with keyboard and mouse because, well, they're designed from the ground up to be a controller game, and third-person action RPGs tend to, from my point of view, feel better with a controller anyway. But if you do want to use a mouse and keyboard, you are free to do so. What that experience is going to be like, I couldn't tell you. All I know is when the original Horizon game launched, I heard some very bad things about the mouse and controller keyboard support on that game. Have they fixed it since then? Have I learned since then? Probably. It's probably going to be better than that at least, but yeah. I would probably just use a controller. That's the way the game was designed to be used, and, whatever. There is a bit of ranged combat in this game, though. There's throwables and there's bows and arrows and crap like that, so you might feel better off with a mouse and keyboard. You might be feeling more accurate, but like all console games, it does have aim assist anyway to help you with that with your floppy stick. Carry on. Now, there are a couple of things that they don't mention on the PlayStation blog post that are mentioned on the Steam page, one of which is the atrocious price. $94.95 Australian dollar it is. Basically just the most expensive they can get away with pricing games at right now. This is pretty standard for Sony, and I really, really hate them for it. I'm struggling to pay my phone bill and my power bill right now, so if anyone wants to help me out with some money on that, or buy the game for me, because I don't know. Life's tough right now. But you're not here to hear me whinge about that. But yeah, the pre-purchase stuff I wanted to talk about, the whole reason we came to Steam, not for me to whine about my financial situation. But if you pre-purchase, which we always say don't pre-order, but this game, you won't meet many people who are going to regret, paying for it slightly early. Now, the bonuses you get for prepaying, you get the New Game Plus Horse Travel Companion. This is a horse you usually don't get until you play New Game Plus, but they give it to you the first time around on this. It's not any better or worse than anything else. It's just a bonus thing. You get the Traveler's Attire, which I believe I had on the PlayStation as a pre-order bonus as well. If I remember correctly, and I really should have double-checked this before I started recording, I believe you can unlock this in the game, but you get it from the get-go with a pre-order. It does have some really nice bonuses. This is a game that has armor set bonuses. You can get different perks for different clothing you're wearing. The Traveler's Attire is very, very useful. It's not going to make you better at the game. It's not going to make you overpowered, but it is a really nice thing to have for exploration purposes. It enhances several of your exploration things so you can find little secrets a little bit easier. And it's really good for when you're trophy hunting as well, because trophy hunting includes finding a lot of little secrets. So it is a nice thing to have, but again, you can unlock it in the game ordinarily anyway. Broken Armor Dies for Baku's shop. Another thing you can unlock in-game, but it does cost in-game stuff you have to go and collect, and you purchase them with like, was it flower petals? Something like that. Anyway, the stuff you collect in the game, you trade off for armor dice and things like that. So you get a few of those. So yeah, none of this is a huge thing, which is good. Because, it's not something they're holding back from you that you can't ordinarily get, and it's not something that's going to make you OP in the game too early to ruin your experience. It's a fairly well-balanced little set of bonuses to just reward you for paying early, I suppose. Steam exclusive offer. This is interesting. Because if you link your Steam account with your PlayStation, this is how they're enticing you to link your account or make it a PlayStation account to link. You get Archery Master's Attire, which again, like the Traveler's Attire, is another suit of armor that gives you special perks. No prizes for guessing what perks you get. You can take a wild guess if you like. It is called the Archery Master's Attire. Feel free to draw your own wild conclusions about what kind of perks that would get you. You also get the Charm of Canine Recruitment, which again is just another little nicety. It's not anything that important in the game mechanically, but it is it's a nice thing to have earlier on. Now, over on the Epic Games Store, you get a very similar thing with the pre-purchase. In fact, you get the same thing. The New Game Plus Horse, the Traveler's Attire, the Broken Armor. And let's have a look here. Do we have any Epic-specific bonuses? It doesn't look like it. So, if you want that bonus archery thing and the dog charm, I guess you're buying on Steam, not Epic. So, all that said and done, what about what I opened with about day and date PlayStation stuff? Well, I mean, one of the big reasons you would include something like a PlayStation overlay that more easily enables, in fact, seamlessly enables you to do cross-play and cross-progression, one would imagine, as well, would be sort of part of the system. It doesn't seem to apply to this particular game, but it's a natural draw of the bow to assume that all that, cross-play, cross-progression, cross-save kind of stuff would still be rolled over within this system as well. Syncing up your trophies so you can play on PC, you can switch over to playing into PlayStation. Maybe you got your PC in your sort of office and your PlayStation in your bedroom. You can just, seamlessly move between those two games, which is going to be much more inviting to do if indeed they launch day and date and you buy both copies of the game, I guess. Or possibly we're pushing towards something like what Xbox currently do with the Game Pass stuff, because a lot of Game Pass games already work like this and have done for many years already. Game Pass on PC, Game Pass on Xbox, a lot of those are cross-play, cross-progression, cross-save, all that kind of stuff. You can just move seamlessly between the two. So I feel like this is, the foundation of PlayStation really doubling down on their PlayStation stuff. They've had a few, dipped a few toes in the water with the earlier ports and stuff released a couple of years after the game, usually just before they announce a sequel, which is probably what's going to happen this time, by the way. Rumor mill is pretty silent about this, but the pattern, the pattern keeps repeating with Horizon, with Spider-Man. You port the game to the PC a couple of years after the original game, and then the next sequel announces, and the sequel's PlayStation exclusive for a while, but is Ghost of Tsushima going to be PlayStation exclusive, or is it going to be PlayStation PC on day one? That's, all up in the air. All I'm saying is the PlayStation underlying system here opens the door to a lot more of that stuff happening. It doesn't feel like a very Sony thing to do, but maybe it's time to change. Maybe Sony has seen sufficient evidence of success on the PC with their existing ports and what that has meant for sales, what that has meant for attention towards their system, what that has meant for sequel sales, what that has meant for, well, rather more importantly for them, talking to their investors saying, hey, we've got these two marketplaces open to us now, where we had one before. Now we can sell to these people and we can sell to these people, and sometimes we can sell to both people at the same time because some people own both these things, and that's rather more important to Sony than anything else. Consumer satisfaction, telling their investors, hey, we can sell our stuff in more places to more people. That means more money for you. So anyway, I've had my say. Now I've just got to wait very patiently for the game to come out and hope and pray someone pays my power bill and buys the game for me. Or I get a massive sponsorship opportunity in the near future. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the people who do help me out. Patrons scrolling up above there. And I will catch you next time. And yeah, don't sleep on this game. Please don't sleep on this game. It is so good. So very good.